Hey, what's up guys, it's Darius, and in this video I'll be testing the camera of the brand new iPhone 12 and comparing it with a few of its best competitors out there: last year's iPhone 11, the Google Pixel 5, the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II, and the OnePlus 8T. Alright, I have all of these 6 devices here in front of me, filming with the front-facing camera on max resolution, and I've added a little twist to this comparison to make it as fair as possible. I've not labeled which is which phone. As you can see in this video, you just have numbers from 1 to 6. And that's because we're all a little biased. We may prefer an iPhone or a Pixel, whatever. But like I said, I wanted to just make a very fair comparison and not have our preferences affected. So therefore, I won't tell you which is which camera. I'll only reveal that at the end. Now I want you to have a look at all these examples, maybe take out a note app and write down which camera you prefer, again, which number you prefer, and then at the end you might be surprised which phone took the best images. But let's jump right in with the first example. Starting with good lighting, here we have a shot indoors of a small plant. I want you to look at the exposure, check out the different tones of white, and definitely make sure to check if the phones did a good job exposing the sky in the top. Next up, we have another outdoor shot in good lighting. In this one, I wanted to check out the differences in the yellow, as well as how saturated it is. In the next shot, look at contrast as well as dynamic range. It's both the front as well as the background, the sky while exposed, and maybe check for some color temperature differences. Here we have an example of skin tones. Definitely check out the different colors and skin tones, how it rendered it. What do you think looks the most accurate and the most natural? Here we have a great shot of a flower. Here you can notice some color differences as well as exposure. Some are a little brighter, some are a little darker. And definitely check out the bokeh as well. This is all natural bokeh. There's no portrait mode or anything involved. In the next example, make sure to look out for differences in skin tones as well as exposure and contrast. Which of these do you prefer? Again, no portrait mode used in this example. Here we have another example of some flowers. You can immediately see a difference in red. Some are more pink, while others are actually quite dark red. Also have a look at the exposure and the background blur, which again is natural. Now this is a very basic shot, but it's also quite interesting. It's an indoor situation with good lighting, but you notice some major differences, especially in the tint of the white table. Also check out the difference in contrast. Some are again way darker in the shadows, while others brighten the shadows up quite a bit. Now I wanted to show you a couple examples of the ultra wides, because all of these phones do have an ultra wide, but only some have a telephoto lens, so I decided not to compare in zoomed in shots as it really wouldn't be fair. But these ultra wide shots are actually very interesting. Sure, there's some differences in exposure and color temperature again, but I mainly want to draw your attention at the distortion on the sides. Some are way more warped than others, and yes, some are a little wider than others as well. But do note, for all of these shots I was standing in the exact same position. Here's the other example I wanted to share with you of the ultra wides, and you see massive differences. There's not a huge difference in terms of distortion this time, but mainly in terms of colors and dynamic range. Check out the sky in the background. Is it exposed well or is it overblown? And also the color of the car. The green is completely different in all of these shots. Now, which of these do you think has the best ultra-wide camera? Now here we have an example of portrait mode. I know they're not all the same framing, but that's because some of these cameras zoom in, some of these don't. But again, they were taken from the exact same position. In this example, make note of the edge detection. How good of a job does it do? As well as the exposure and colors. Quickly, let's have a look at a selfie, again in good lighting. It is challenging lighting though, because the sun is coming from the background, and you can see some major differences. Mainly check out the difference in the color of my skin. Some turn out really weird. I don't know what's up with that. Now let's move on to some low light shots. This is technically not low light yet, but it is almost dark and quite a challenging situation for the cameras. Pay attention to the dynamic range. Can you still see some detail in the dark part of the image? And also check out the difference in colors and saturation. In the next example, there's also a big difference in color temperature. Check out the orange. Which of these do you prefer? We do also have an example of a low light selfie. Now it's not super dark here, but it is a more challenging light situation. What do you think in this case? Now before we had lower light situations, but now we're moving on to proper dark scenarios. And here I always used a night mode when possible. In this example, there are some massive differences between all of them. Brightness, sharpness, saturation, and noise, as well as color tint. And lastly, we have an extremely challenging situation. This is nighttime. There's only a few lights from the houses. Like I said, I used the night mode if the device had one, and you can see some massive differences, how much the image was brightened up, and if that resulted in noise. So you've seen all the examples now in good lighting, in low light, using the ultra wide or the portrait mode, and even selfies. By the way, now I'm filming this segment with the rear facing cameras in 4K. I'm guessing you've kind of made up your mind which camera you preferred or which number you preferred. And before I reveal which is which, make sure to comment down below what that number is and yeah, what your guess is, what device that is as well. But now I'm going to reveal which is which. Number 1 was the OnePlus 8T. Number 2 was the iPhone 12. Number 3 was the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II. Number 4 was the Pixel 5. Number 5 was the iPhone 11. And number 6 was the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. Or Note 20 Ultra, apologies. Were you at all surprised with these results? Maybe you picked a device that you would never have thought had the best camera. That's the beauty of this unbiased comparison, this blind comparison. Now, my opinion, it wasn't blind, you know, I saw these images, I took all of them, I compared them. In my opinion, the iPhone 12 does have a very good camera. It's a toss-up in good lighting. It's really hard to tell which is which and which is better. There are some differences, of course. The Pixel 5 goes for a cooler and maybe a little darker look. The iPhones go for a much warmer look. It's really personal preference. I think the biggest difference or the biggest improvement of the iPhone 12 compared to the iPhone 11 was in low light, and you can really tell the difference there. The Pixel 5, the iPhone 12 and the Samsung did the best in low light. The iPhone 11 was decent, the OnePlus 8T wasn't really good, and Sony was the worst because it doesn't have a night mode at all. Generally, the Sony, for example, was not my favorite. It did do well in some instances and produce some natural results, but overall, I preferred the other cameras. You expect the Pixel, the newest iPhone, and the super expensive Note 20 Ultra to have great cameras. But the OnePlus did really surprise me. In some instances, it did really well. iPhone 11 also did a really good job. It isn't far behind the iPhone 12, so if you want to pick that up instead of the iPhone 12, definitely goes ahead. You won't have a much inferior camera. By the way, all the iPhone 12 models except for the Max have the exact same camera, so there's no differences whatsoever, except for you do get that telephoto lens on the Pro models. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button. Don't forget to check out my other videos on iPhone 12, for example, how its battery holds up compared to its competition. I'll leave that link below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to not miss any of my upcoming videos. And I'll see you guys in the next one.